Hey guys, my name is Magnetico and welcome back to my series of videos where we take video game systems, we clean them up, repair them if need be, and sometimes we mod them. And today we're going to be taking a look back at the Dreamcast that we cleaned up. This guy is ready for many more years of service that we replaced all the thermal pads, and this guy got a thorough cleaning. If you guys haven't seen that video or are stumbling into this video, make sure you check that one out first. That way you have a nice clean Dreamcast before we start adding all the mods. Now for this particular video, we are going to be adding some mods to this Dreamcast. One of them is going to be the battery mod, and it allows us to replace the CR2032 batteries. I know, I said CR2032 in reference to the Dreamcast, and I felt the earth shift with the collective of you immediately sitting down to furiously type and let me know that I am completely wrong. But I am a future mag, and I'm here to set the record straight. So go ahead and back away from the keyboard and put your phone down, because I will go ahead and let everybody know that I made a mistake throughout this video. So I'm going to go ahead and put this here towards the beginning while I still have your attention and let you guys know not to use the CR2032 batteries. Instead, use an ML2032, which is kind of like a basic CMOS battery, and it is rechargeable. The CR2032 batteries are not rechargeable. Now, unless you have a diode installed in your Dreamcast that actually blocks the charges, it could actually damage your Dreamcast in the long run. It won't happen immediately because I played a lot of hours using the CR2032, but go ahead and get the ML2032 instead, and that way it'll recharge your battery when you play it and there's no danger. The lucky thing is the actual mod that we're installing on the Dreamcast throughout this video will work with the ML2032s, which is great. The second thing I want to talk about that I wish somebody would have told me, or at least warned me about, was that the GDEMU that I purchased came with some heatsinks, which I will be installing throughout this video. Now, the heatsinks are great at dissipating heat. However, in the future videos, I am going to be installing the Laserbear Industries SD card adapter, which is a large piece of plastic that covers the GDEMU, and you can use an SD card at the top. You guys have seen me do it in other videos, and it's just to make the system look great, and it makes the SD card easier to access. Now, if you want to just have a hole in there in your system and you're not interested in getting the Laserbear Industries, please follow this guide and use the heat sinks. Otherwise, I recommend against it, because I have tried to install the Laserbear Industries SD card adapter, and the heat sinks actually block it. You can't put it on flush, and it makes it really difficult to close the system. So I do not recommend it. So throughout this video, I will be putting on the heatsinks, but I'll let you guys know right now that if you're planning on getting an SD card adapter, do not put them on. I had to remove them. I had to use like an X-Acto knife, and the adhesive was so strong, so I had to use like Goo Gone and all kinds of crazy things. It was a mess. But again, if you're not interested in the SD card adapter, put on those heat sinks so you make sure that heat is dissipated and blown out of the system. Otherwise, leave them off if you're planning on getting the SD card adapter. All right, back to the video. Anytime that we need to, as opposed to it being out of the factory, it was soldered into the controller structure of this particular system. I don't like it when companies do that. I don't know why they do that, to be honest with you, but we are going to do a mod which lets us replace those batteries at any point. The second mod we're going to add to the system is going to be a fan mod, and we are going to be replacing it with a knock-to-a fan. That way it is quieter and the airflow is a lot better. It does require a mod kit as well, which is 3D printed, which we got from Laserbear Industries. We'll get into that a little bit later. The last mod we're going to be adding to this Dreamcast is going to be the GDEMU, and that is an optical drive emulator that lets us run our games from an SD card. This is no stranger to us. We have done it with the PlayStation, and we've done it with the Sega Saturn as well. Now, the official GDEMU is no longer in production because the cloners have pretty much taken over the industry, but you can find a clone that works really well out there on eBay for about $100, maybe a little bit more right now, depending on the market. But the one thing I do recommend is that you get a version 5.20, not 0.5 or 5.15, because those don't run some of the games that were giving us some issues in the past, such as Skies of Arcadia and Code Veronica. So make sure you get the 5.20. I have tested both of those games out on this Dreamcast, and they work just fine with the GDEMU. Once we're done with all the mods, I will tell you guys how to add games into your SD card. I won't tell you where to download them from or how to acquire them, but I will tell you what program to use and how to install them so it's nice and clean and organized, and that way we can go ahead and use our GDEMU to play pretty much any Dreamcast game that we want. So thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I do apologize for the wait on this one. If this is your kind of thing where somebody goes through and cleans up systems, repairs them if need be, and sometimes mods them, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you're notified every time I post a video. Let's get started. For this process, you're going to need the Dreamcast, a set of Phillips screwdrivers. I use these for the hard to reach screws, a soldering iron, soldering flux, tin, and soldering wick. Optionally, you can also use a solder sucker. And you'll need the GDEMU board and an SD card. You'll need a battery mod and some CR2032 batteries, a knock to a fan, and the knock to a fan mod kit. So with the Sega Dreamcast, we're going to go ahead and flip it over. We're going to first of all take off the internet adapter, and then we're going to use our screwdriver to remove all 4 screws at the bottom. The bottom left is the one that was really hard to reach originally, so this is why I bought that new set of Phillips screwdrivers. Once you take off all 4 screws, we can go ahead and flip the system around, and we can take off the lid. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and unplug the power from the PSU, and then there's going to be 2 screws that held this together. Remember, there is an entire disassembly video and cleanup video that I made previously. You can go ahead and check that out if there's anything that I miss here. I cleaned the system completely and even replaced the thermal pads in that original video. Let's remove the power supply and also this piece of plastic. Next, we're going to remove the 2 screws around the power button. Once we remove those, we can go ahead and take the power button switch and the cable. 3 screws hold the disk assembly into the system. Once we remove all 3 of those, we can go ahead and remove the disk drive. With the disk drive removed, there are 2 screws holding the fan structure as well. Once you remove both of those, don't pull the fan immediately. Make sure you disconnect it from the controller port first. We can go ahead and set that aside. There are 4 screws holding the controller assembly together. Make sure you remove those. Once you remove the controller port, there is a ribbon holding it into the motherboard, so remove that gently. This is all the disassembly we're going to be doing for the Sega Dreamcast, so let's go ahead and put the rest of this to the side. And let's go ahead and start with the battery mod. In this package, there are 3 mods included in case you mess one of them up. I did mess one of mine up, so luckily I have another 2 chances to get it correctly. Removing it from the package, these are, they're pretty sturdy. They're definitely well made, so I'm just checking at the pins to make sure everything looks good here. Everything seems to check out. With the controller structure, I'm just kind of taking a look here. As you can see, the battery was soldered to the original structure. So we're going to remove the solder from these 3 points that I just looked at here. You can use the solder wick, but I'll be using the solder sucker in this case. So I can remove the solder from all 3 points. And once I remove that one, I'm going to remove this one. And lastly, for the final point, I'll use the solder sucker to remove any solder from this one. It's not perfect. There's definitely solder still there. So typically what I'll do is I'll go in with the solder wick afterwards and remove the rest of the solder surrounding the pins. As you can see, it gets looser, so I just kind of pull the rest of the structure off. Not the best way to do it. As you can see, I'm kind of twisting there, but at this point, I'm just going to use the solder wick to go ahead and clean up the rest of the solder and maybe even some of the pin that was left in there. So here I am going with the wick, try to remove everything, make sure everything is nice and clean. And lastly, once everything is nice and clean, I'll go in with a toothbrush and isopropyl alcohol and remove any residue. Now that it's nice and clean, I can go in with the new battery mod and put the pins into place. This is where I messed one of them up. I didn't remove enough solder off one of the holes, and the pin ended up going into the plastic structure, and that was one to scratch off. So just be super patient with it. But once you're able to insert the pins all the way through, you can go ahead and solder those back into place. It is a super easy process, and our controller structure now supports the switching of CR2032 batteries. This is our GDEMU box here, which I haven't opened even though I've owned it for at least over a year at this point. It comes with the unit itself, some heat sinks, and an SD card adapter. So I'm going to go ahead and open this unit up for the very first time. Again, I've owned this for over a year, and you guys are seeing it for the first time as I'm seeing it for the first time. So that's pretty cool. Looks like there are some legs in there in case you want to use them. But here is the unit itself. It is a version 5.20, which is able to support pretty much all the games that were issues like Code Veronica or Skies of Arcadia. I'm trying to put the leg in here, but it is kind of tough, and I'm not going to worry about it too much since we're going to be replacing it with another mod in a future video. But here is the unit, a close-up of it. Next, we're going to take a look at the Noctua fan mod. And we're going to take out the actual mod itself so I can take a quick look at it. Looks like it comes with everything I need, including the mod, the door latch there to replace it. We'll do that later on in the video. And definitely the Noctua fan with a screw. This will give you better airflow, not just better airflow, but also much quieter airflow, which is kind of what I'm going for here. So pretty cool setup. I definitely like this a lot. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Let's take the Dreamcast and put it back into place here in the center. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in our brand new CR2032 battery. And next we're going to put the ribbon back into the motherboard. So anytime you need to take off the top of the Dreamcast to switch out a battery, it's going to be super easy to do now. I don't know why companies solder the batteries into the actual structure in the first place. I'm not familiar with that reasoning, but here we can just switch it out at any point. So anytime the battery drains out and you don't want to input the date and time every time, we can go ahead and just switch out the battery and call it a day. Once we screw the controller structure into place, I'm going to put the new fan mod into place here. As you can see, you can use the original screws that came with the Dreamcast to put that together. And with the Noctua fan mod itself, we're going to attach the adapter. This will allow us to connect it to the controller structure of the Dreamcast. So let's go ahead and take the fan. We're going to put it into place. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do with the wire because it's so long right now. But once I put everything together, that's when I'll decide what I want to do with the wire. So once it's into place, it does go kind of diagonally in a diamond shape, essentially. We're going to take the big screw that came with the Noctua fan, and we're going to screw that into place. Looks like it's nice and sturdy. So this wire, I'm just going to move out of the way for now. And we're going to keep assembling the system. We're going to take the GDEMU here and then connect it where the disk drive used to go. I might put a leg on the bottom left corner there, just because I don't like the way it's kind of sinking. But speaking of sinking, we're going to take these heat sinks here and we're going to put them into place. They do already come with the adhesive, thankfully. So once you remove the little paper, it'll expose the adhesive and we can put it into the two chips at the top. Now, I have seen several videos on the installation of the GDEMU board, and most people orient the heat sinks in the way that you'll see in my footage here in just a moment. Now, on a engineering standpoint, I'm not sure what the best direction is to dissipate heat. It could be the same, it could be different, but most people have posted videos showing the orientation the way that I'm doing it here. So that's the way we're going to do it for this particular video. If you guys know better, please let me know in the comments below. We're going to plug in the new fan mod cord into the controller structure here. And I was having a little bit of issues here. I should have probably plugged that in first before I put the fan mod back in. So after a little bit of struggling, I still don't know what to do with this wire. So again, we're just going to put it to the side. We're going to go ahead and put the power button back into place. Remember, there were two screws, one on each side. Make sure you feed that wire to the side and make sure it's under this piece of plastic here. And next we're going to take the power supply and then put it back into place. Remember, there were 6 pins that come from the motherboard all the way up, and you have to make sure those fit within the power supply. Once those pins are in, then I'll focus on the back and make sure that's nice and snug. There were 2 screws holding this power supply into place, so I'm going to go ahead and put those in. And to finish off the power supply, I'm going to take the power button cord and plug it into place. So I did put one leg on the bottom left side of the GDEMU here, so it wasn't sinking any longer. We can take that off once we finish off the mods on our finishing touches video. And the wire for now, I'm just going to feed it under the actual GDEMU board for just a little bit here, just to make sure that everything works first, and I'll go ahead and mess with it a little bit later. One last modification we have to do is we do have to go ahead and modify the piece of plastic for the open button switch. Make sure you hang on to the spring and all the screws. The reason why we have to replace this is because the new fan actually doesn't work well with this particular piece of plastic. So we have to get a modified 3D printed piece of plastic so the system can go back together nice and tightly. So once that's in place, we can go ahead and put the original screws back into place. And with that spring that we took off earlier, we can go ahead and use it and just put it back, as you can see here. And this is again for the open door button. I'm going to go ahead and test it out here. Looks like it closes and it opens just fine. So let's take the system. Let's go ahead and put the top shell back into place. And as you can see, it closes beautifully. We're going to go ahead and flip it over and put the 4 screws that we took off earlier and make sure we put those back into place. Last but not least, we're going to take the Ethernet adapter and plug it back into place. Flip it over. I'm going to do a quick test here just to see what it looks like. And yeah, looks pretty good. We're going to give it one last swipe. Good Dreamcast. Now that all the mods are done on our Dreamcast, let's go ahead and take our SD card and SD card adapter and plug it into our computer. So now that we've inserted our SD card into our computer, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at it here. Looks like there's nothing in there, but if we look at the format, because it does have to be in FAT32 in order for it to work with the GDEMU, we can go ahead and format it if there was an option for it. It looks like for now all we have is NTFS and exFAT as a default. So what I like to use is a little program called Rufus, and with this program we can go ahead and make partitions or format cards in ways that maybe they weren't meant to be, especially for these higher gigabyte ones. So what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and create a non-bootable disk drive here. We don't want it to boot Windows. We don't need it to do any of that. We're going to keep pretty much everything the same, and I'm going to call this SD card Dreamcast. And we're going to go ahead and change this to a large FAT32 and make sure everything else stays default, and go ahead and hit start. It'll ask you that you're okay with everything being destroyed within this card. Go ahead and hit OK. Once that's done, we can go ahead and close all of these items up, but we can go ahead and do one more format check here. And it looks like it is, oh, sorry, that's not what I meant to do. We can go to properties and make sure that it is FAT32. So now we have a FAT32 card ready to go. Rufus does create some files in here, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those. But now that that's ready, we can go ahead and close this guy up. We won't need that anymore. Next, we're going to hop into Google and we're going to go to the GDEMU Memory Card Manager GitHub. And I'll go ahead and post a link in the section below so you guys can go ahead and find this immediately. But one of the things about this program is that it does organize everything in order for your GDEMU to recognize it easily. One of the weird things about the GDEMU, which I absolutely do not like, is that you can't just drag and drop files into it in order to start playing games like you could with the other optical drive emulators that we mess with. They have to be in a specific order, and they have to be numbered from 01 all the way to 99. I'm not sure what the maximum number of games you can put in one of these, but unfortunately you can't just drag and drop. They have to be numbered. So that is a bit of a hassle, especially if you're trying to organize them in alphabetical order. So this program actually takes care of all of that. Now, one of the things you do have to do is you do have to have this Net 6.0 runtime, and you can either download it from here, or whenever you start the GDEMU for the very first time, it'll actually tell you, hey, I can't run this, but it'll take you directly to the website for you to download that runtime and install it into your computer. So as of this video, the newest GDEMU card manager is 2.0.1. So we're going to go ahead and go here and pick the appropriate file. Since I have a Windows 64 system, a 64-bit system, I'm going to go ahead and download that. All right, now that that's downloaded, I am going to extract this. Now, typically I work from my desktop here, as I usually do in my videos. As far as the format for the games go and how you get them, that is up to you guys, how you guys acquire them. You can maybe do a dump of them, or you can find them out in the high seas. However you want to do it, it does support CDI formats and GDI formats as well. A CDI is a compressed version of a Dreamcast game, but if you want a pure untouched game, GDI is the way to go, and that is typically the way I prefer to grab my games. So here I have a bunch of games that I've already downloaded. We have Crazy Taxi, Marvel vs. Capcom, Resident Evil 2, Disc 1, and Street Fighter Third Strike. Let's go ahead and run the GDEMU card manager here. Again, if you're running it for the first time and you don't have that runtime 6.0 installed, it'll take you directly there. But since I already have mine installed, mine should run no problem. Now, it seems that the card manager already recognized my SD card immediately, which is totally fine. The one option you can choose from as far as your menu on your Dreamcast goes is the GD menu or the open menu. I prefer the open menu. I think it's much cleaner and it shows the artwork, and I just think it looks really nice. So this is the one I tend to go with, but if you have any issues with this one, you can always try the GDEMU instead. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our games. And it looks like I have Resident Evil 2 already ready to go here. And you just kind of have to go through each file and find the GDI file as well. So we're going to do Crazy Taxi next. Next, we're going to go ahead and do Marvel vs. Capcom. And lastly, the one game I haven't done yet, I believe, is Street Fighter Third Strike. Looks good. So once you hit save changes, it'll save everything to your memory card. But from what you can see here is they're not in alphabetical order. So I'm going to go ahead and sort the list. That way they're in alphabetical order. Number 2, I always check the view file info. And if you see the little artwork pop up here, that means the game is most likely going to work on the GDEMU. But Marvel vs. Capcom, I can already tell you, I'm not seeing a file here. It is very likely that it's not going to work when I run it on the Dreamcast itself, but I'm going to keep it here just to show you guys an example of what happens. That means you either have to do another dump or get another dump from another source. Looks like Resident Evil looks good, and Street Fighter Third Strike also looks good. So next up, we're going to go ahead and save changes, and once we hit that, that means it's going to save all this in this particular order into our SD card. All right, once that's done, we're going to do one final check here so I can give you guys an example. We can go ahead and close out of this. I'm going to go over to my Dreamcast SD card here. And as you can see, they're all numbered from 1 through 5 in alphabetical order. Again, don't know why it does that, but that's just the way it is. And it also created the GDEMU ini file for all our settings once we open up the whole thing in our Dreamcast. So we're done for now. If you want to add more games, that's completely up to you guys. For now, we're going to take the SD card out of our computer and we're going to put it into our Dreamcast. So as you can see, now that we boot up our Dreamcast with the GDEMU and our games already kind of in there, it does give us the list of games. Again, this is the open menu version, not the GDEMU version that we picked out. I like this one. Again, it's a lot cleaner. It does give you the choices at the bottom, and then it shows you a really big artwork of it, but we don't have that set up. We will be setting that up during the finishing touches video, but for now we have Crazy Taxi, Marvel vs. Capcom, Resident Evil 2, and Street Fighter Third Strike, or Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. So we're going to go ahead and run the Marvel vs. Capcom, because I feel like this is the one that was going to give me some issues. So let's go ahead and run that real quick. And I actually think this is going to work, which is interesting. Now, this is a dump that I have used in the past that was not working with the GDEMU, so I'm not sure if it's the GDEMU SD card formatter program that we were using. That is because we're now using 2.0.1. Before I was using the 2.0 version essentially. And for some reason, this game was giving me a lot of issues, but it looks like it's running at full speed now, which is absolutely awesome. So I can't see if it's the program or what's going on here, but it looks like it's working just fine. So as you can see, the games run at full speed. There isn't anything crazy going on with this at all. In fact, these games will load faster because they're running off an SD card as opposed to an optical drive, which always deals with the laser and the possibility of your disc being scratched and kind of slowing things down. So this is pretty cool. I'm actually really excited that this game is working. I don't know what I'm going to do about the artwork, because I don't know if it'll even pull it because it didn't recognize it on the SD card manager. So we're gonna end up finding out during our next video what we can do about that. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and just gonna fight a little bit here, and then we move on with the video. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that takes care of all the mods that we're going to be doing for this Dreamcast. We added the battery mod. We also added a fan mod, thanks to a Noctua fan mod and Laser Bears Industries fan mod kit as well. We also did the big one, which is the GDEMU installation, so we can play all our Dreamcast games from an SD card. Now, for the next video, we are going to be doing the finishing touches. Typically, that is where I add artwork, if possible, to anything or any of the hardware, such as the GDEMU in this case. I love seeing the artwork for games whenever I'm picking them out. I also get a bunch of accessories, and last but not least, I do want to get another product from Laser Bear Industries, and that is an SD card adapter. That way there's not a giant hole inside of our system. It'll basically cover this up, and there'll be a slot at the very top for us to add our SD card, and it just looks super clean and it looks super good. And I pretty much have done it for every other ODE that we've done. We bought one for the PlayStation, for the Sega Saturn, and the GameCube as well, and they all look absolutely phenomenal. So thank you guys again so much for joining me for this video. If you guys have any questions, make sure you leave it in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer any questions or any issues that you guys might have. If this is your kind of thing where somebody goes through and cleans up systems, repairs them if need be, and sometimes mods them, make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you're notified every time I post a video. Thank you again so much for joining me. I do apologize again for being late on this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.